Magic the Gathering is precisely that, a gathering. No matter what format you prefer, you can't play the game by yourself, despite what Storm players would lead you to believe. But as world events force people to stay in their homes, away from their playgroups or LGS, how do you engage with a hobby that for most borders on a lifestyle, and can simple steps keep the magic alive? Also, Ikoria has arrived. Welcome to Magic the Flavouring, the Magic the Gathering podcast. We talk about all things magic flavour, design and lore. I'm your host, Andy Mann.
Hello, it's Nathan Cancel.
And we are here talking today about many different things. Firstly, in the past hour, we've had our first lot of Ikoria spoilers.
Salvation has come. Our boredom has been quashed.
They're fitting all of the spoilers into 10 days, I think they said it was. Something ridiculous.
Yeah, and considering like the size of the actual creatures themselves and the amount of stuff that seems to be going on just from the first, like, literally hour of spoilers, it's a lot of stuff to fit into 8 days, to 8 to 10 days. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this episode, straight up, is not necessarily about the Ikoria spoilers. In fact, we'll probably be able to do that in our next episode. It's actually going to be more about how to sort of engage with the game of Magic whilst living in some sort of like self-isolation, or a lot of people are spending a lot more time just in their flats or in their homes or wherever they live, and how to keep sort of engaged with the game whilst not necessarily playing it with people, because there are ways to play the game, obviously, but not everyone has access to those. But yeah, we set the recording time to be like, oh, let's record at around 4 p.m. And yeah, we started our recording just in time to get the first hour of Ikoria spoilers. So you know, the first half of this episode is just going to be us squeeing over that, I think. To be honest with you.
Literally it's like they've dropped a lot of really cool stuff. It's not just the Ikoria Lyra Behemoth set. We've also got the commanders for the Commander 2020 as well. So lots of mythics, lots of splashy effects. Lots of hints about what the rest of the set's going to look like. And then we've also had both the Planeswalker guides from the point of view of Vivian, as we know her to be the main protagonist of the story. And we've also got the mechanics article as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we kind of know exactly what the set's going to look like in terms of how it's going to play. And we also know how it's going to look in terms of aesthetics and style. And that kind
we also have had the trailer as well. The trailer's dropped for it.
Oh god, I forgot about the trailer. Yeah, to be fair, as trailers go, this one is absolutely great. I was going to say bonkers nonsense, as I always do, but it is fantastic. It's really
cool. It's got the Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Bad Reputation is the song that they're using for it. How do you feel about them using like pop songs and rock songs in their trailers?
So at first, when it first chipped in, I did my brain did an eye roll with like, oh, okay, yeah, right, fair enough. But then what I liked is it makes it feel like Magic's not different from any other normal IP that you have for any other like hobby or something that you're doing. Like when Magic trailers start to feel like everyday normal trailers instead of not fanboy stuff, but like, you know, when sometimes it has a convoluted storyline, and like especially when they just used to do like movement across the cards and like animate the cards artworks and stuff. It felt poor. It felt like a poor attempt at a trailer when for a card game you don't necessarily need one. Now these are like properly documenting stories. It's actually like a movie trailer. It's great.
I really like it.
It makes it feel like a normal thing.
Yeah, I kind of feel like as in the kind of balance of commercializing our card game and at one end, and then keeping it slightly, I suppose, nerdy and sort of special to the people who enjoy it. I feel like this is nice and bang right in the middle of that. I really like the fact that they use these songs in trailers. But yeah, cool. All right, that was just a little thought that literally popped into my head. So,
well, it's very true to the fantasy trope, and I think it works. It really elevates the set as well. It doesn't give too much away. It definitely shows there's a conflict between. So clearly, like from what you can see in the trailer, there's big crystal structures that seem to be housed within a citadel or township or whatever. And they start green at the beginning, and then by the end of it, they turn red. And the monster that's attacking Vivian and her companion is spurned onto greater mutates right in front of her and gets like bigger and badder and more fiery and that kind of thing. So I think we're clearly going to look at a conflict over what's going to be happening in terms of like whatever makes these creatures mutate. I think there's going to be an imbalance from good to bad across the set, but we'll see.
Sure. I mean, we made quite a few predictions in our last episode about what was going to be going on in Ikoria. One of the things that we said was that we thought that there would be a sentient race of humans, but they were going to be they were going to be on the back foot against the incoming beasts. That's kind of what we said, wasn't it? We seem to be correct on that one. In the trailer, there seems to be a tribe of people that are getting beaten the fuck up by a giant monster, and then Vivian comes to save the day.
So I think so humans have been confirmed to be the only sentient race that are able to cohabit the world with the monsters that are around them. Some of them hold up in bastions, where they're, as I said, from small little like huts and stuff into the forest to big like citadel kind of areas where they've managed to hold out. It's very much given that they don't. It's not like they're fighting the monsters because they know they'd lose. There's loads of companion guys called bonders, which we assume the other planeswalker that's been spoiled today is probably likely to be. The same with the character that's on the front of the book that we've seen that's coming out, the ebook. There are bonders.
What's a bonder? Sorry.
So a bonder is someone who creates essentially a spiritual connection with whether they're really. So all of the creatures on the Ikoria range in size. They're not all just massive monsters.
Sure.
There are some smaller ones as well. So you can either bond with something. You can bond with a creature of any size, and they basically become like your companion. Kind of a little bit like demons in his Dark Materials, of where
sure.
When they it says specifically in the Planeswalker Guide, when you claim that they are it's their monster. It's kind of like their companion or their friend. It's
sure.
not ownership. It's
a kinship. It's a kinship.
It's a kinship, exactly. And sometimes it can happen instantaneously. Sometimes it takes years. Usually it's only with one. I think the character that we see on the front of the book is a guy called like Kennen, I think it is, that Vivian talks about in the Planeswalker Guides, who's bonded with multiple monsters. So clearly there is an aspect of companionship. But it's not all of them. Like it's not every human that's bonding.
Sure. The book that you're talking about as well, because we're kind of a bit all over the place because we have just had such a slew of information today coming about Ikoria. The book that's going to be coming out with the Ikoria set, we haven't really spoken much about it, is going to be by Django Wexler, and it's going to be an ebook, very much in the same vein as The Watered Quest by Kate Elliott, and this one's going to be called Sundered Bond. So it's Django Wexler's Sundered Bond, and so there's this element of binding yourself, your destiny, to another beast. Seems pretty.
We've only seen the artwork for it, and if you look at it, try not to see the guy as David Beckham, because I can't not now, and I've just ruined it for you as well. Enjoy.
Yeah, he does look very, very much like David Beckham on the front now.
It's really weird.
Excuse me. We know there's that going on.
So in terms of like what we've seen from the set, I mean, it's going to be built kind of like the way that the shards were done for Alara, in terms of there are 5 different, not biomes, they're called triomes, because they have 3 different colors of mana incorporated into them. And so it's going to be like, so each of them has different names, obviously for like the Sultai, the Temur, and the Absen or whatever. And they all have their own distinct ecosystems, their own distinct base creature types. So one of them's cats, one of them's dinosaurs, and they all have their own hierarchy. So there'll be a apex predator for each of them as well.
So these are the different sort of geographical areas of Ikoria.
Absolutely,
that have all these different little mana confluences. Yeah.
Precisely. As I say, like the Planeswalker Guide's up now, so I recommend going and reading it, because it'll give you an idea of what to expect going forwards. Like there's a Thunder Raptor that looks like it's going to be coming out. So there's some really good tidbits, and it obviously gives you the lowdown of what to expect going forwards.
Sure. There are a couple of new mechanics that have kind of emerged. Do you want to talk through the mechanics that we already know about?
Yeah, so we've had the mechanics article out as well. So the returning mechanic that we all know and love is cycling. I think the idea is that you were correct in your assumption when we were talking about over the last few episodes about how this set's likely to be not a converted mana cost matters set so much, but certainly I think there's going to be a lot to do with higher mana costs, because when you add cycling in, typically it's to add the ability to make your really expensive spells or your really niche spells into that you can basically recycle them.
Sure.
And have them and so basically they don't sit in your hand like doing nothing. So cycling's back. It's got a few different effects, whether it's having triggered effects, triggered abilities, and also the typical thing of when you can play it as a 1/1 that has an effect, or you can cycle it for a one-time effect of say like putting a death touch counter on something. Now this is something that's new to the set: keyword counters. Now keyword counters basically work in the same way that keywords would, whether it be trample, vigilance, first strike. There'll be a way that you put a counter on a creature, and it'll be either a vigilance counter or a first strike counter. And they've added basically these punch out little counter things that you get as well, that you can basically punch out the different counters from a little card.
Sure. So these are very similar to the kind of brick counters that they had in Amonkhet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And basically you can, and so it's a way of basically adding, in the same way that we've been looking at like, the mutations being a big theme of the set. And the idea is it's kind of like a way of like the creature gaining vigilance or gaining it's a permanently rather than temporarily.
Well, they said in the kind of lead up to this that there were going to be like X amount of counters. I can't remember exactly the amount they were going to say. And
12, I think they said 12 distinct ones.
Yeah, which this is a perfect way of doing it. Like I really like this. Like I think before the podcast started, you were about to ask me what I thought of them, and to answer that question now in the podcast, I really fucking like it. I think it's a really cool way of doing it. They said the whole flavor of this set was about building your own monsters, about building your own kaiju. And there's a couple of ways that they're doing it in this set. We'll get on to the mutate mechanic in just a second. But the counters really make it feel like you can take like vanilla creatures or creatures that are maybe low drops, you know, and maybe just like a 2-1 flyer or whatever else. And then halfway through the game, if you really like that creature, if it's doing work for you, you can build it up, you can pump it up, you can give it death touch, you can trample, you can give it indestructible or whatever. And I think it's just a really and also it's a really nice flexible way of playing the game. If you like creature-based strategies, sometimes the thing that you fall foul of is that your game plan isn't the most versatile. It's put your creatures down, swing in, try and get damage through. Whereas this set, which is going to be all about, you know, creatures and creature mechanics, it's a way of adding that flexibility that Spellslinger decks tend to have into your creature-based strategy. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. Like, say for example, you have a 5/1. Now, would you rather put a trample counter on it, a first strike counter on it, a flying counter on it? The way that you can basically Swiss Army knife all of your different creatures, even outside of, as we are going to talk about mutate in a second, outside of the simple building them up right on top of each other, you can basically turn any one of your creatures. So if you have a death touch creature, for example, if you can get a first strike counter on it, boom, look at that nonsense go.
Yeah, very cool.
You can really I like the fact that it allows, as you said, it allows this flexibility of where your cards aren't just the cards that you have in your hand. They have potential to work synergistically with everything else in your deck to be flexible around different play styles or to be counteractive to other people's play styles as well. I think it's going to be quite cool at making the more vanilla-y creatures of the set, because there are going to be some that are going to be quite vanilla compared to the ridiculous monstrosities that we've seen already. And this will be a way to, even on a basic level up through the mana curve up to like 1 to 5, you can basically create your own monstrous creature. If you have like a little say a 1/1 death strike, a 1/1 death touch first strike hexproof. Holy shit.
Yeah, very good.
How do you work around that? And then they just keep adding other bits and pieces onto it. And you can't there's more and more and more you can't do about it. That's great. I love that a lot. I think, and it creates this little story of this little frog or whatever that slowly but surely grows its way into this like hulking great monster.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
So the other way,
but moving on to that's not the only way that we can alter and change our creatures.
Yep.
We can also mutate. So mutate is new to this set. It's very much a take, kind of like augment was from Unstable.
Yeah, sure.
And I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head of what we expected from it last week. The only
yes and no.
Yeah, we got one thing right, and then I think we got one thing wrong. And the one thing wrong, I think, doesn't matter quite as much as the one thing right, even though the one thing right, I think, is the thing that makes this mechanic really interesting.
Sure. So what do we get right? How does mutate work?
So basically what you do is you fuse 2 creatures together. Basically, you'll have a mutate cost on a creature. If you cast this spell for its mutate cost, you put it over or under target non-human creature you own. They mutate, so the 2 of them both mutate into one creature, one on top of onto the creature on top, plus all the abilities to run underneath it. So, for example, if you have what they've shown here on the mechanics one is you've got a Cloud Piercer, which is 4 and a red for a 5/4 with reach. Whenever this creature mutates, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. And then you've also got the Mosscoat Goriag, which is 2 and a green for a 2/4 with vigilance. And the idea is that you, for 3 and a red off of the Cloud Piercer, you can either put it on top of the Goriag, making it a 2/4 vigilant reach, blah 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 blah, or you can put it underneath the Mosscoat Goriag and have the whatever this creature. You can choose which of the abilities you keep.
Sure. And the way that they've made this different from Augment visually as well is that Augment the card was formatted so it was split down the middle. Vertically, so either half would be the back end or the front end of the creature you were making, whereas this is split horizontally along the text box, so you do it vertically up and down, which I think is a much cleaner thing for your playmat, your game space as well. Like, that's a very smart idea, because one of the big problems that something like Meld had from Shadows over Innistrad and Eldritch Moon was that your 2 meld cards just took up way too much space on your playmat.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be really interesting, and especially on some of the legendary creatures that have mutate. It's just it's gonna cause some crazy. I mean, all the formats are just going to be very strange for like the next year.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's trying to be aesthetic in terms of, obviously it lays all of the cards one underneath each other, so you read it it reads more naturalistically. But
naturalistically, that's a cool word.
Thank you. And then you add, but when you add like 3 or 4 on top of each other, and then you start adding on the counters and everything, like you are going to end up with what a 5-card pack, a 5-card stack with 16 different counters. Like, that to me is fantastic. That seems great.
Yeah, and
the things that all the different permutations of creature make the game so much more. Like, it's going to make the limited format really interesting. And it just seems to have a lot of nice natural synergy. The fact that it triggers, it also feels a little bit like Soul Bond. But I think it's a bit more. I think it reads better, and I think it's slightly less complicated. Once people get used to it, I think it's going to read less complicatedly than Soul Bond did. Plus, you don't have to worry about any of your Deadeye Navigator shenanigans.
Sure. I mean, just the mana costs in some of these as well. I just want to talk about. There's a legendary creature that got spoiled on Twitch. I think all the spoilers today are from Twitch, twitch.tv, and it's called Illuna, Apex of Wishes, which is a 2 mana green, blue, red for a beast elemental dinosaur. 6/6, which has flying and trample, but its mutate cost is 3 generic, a Gruul hybrid, so a green or a red, blue. What?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so hybrids.
That's crazy. I mean, hybrid seems to be quite a big thing, which will not do anything to lessen the fires of contention around what the hybrid mana should be in Commander.
Yeah, right. I know.
That's been a whole thing this week, but there we go.
Yeah.
That's a conversation for a very different time.
Exactly. So that's a brief little look at Mutate. Have a little look and say there are like a few different cards that have been released today that show it, and then the mechanics guide again explains it better than I did, because even listening back to myself as I spoke, I sounded like a ferret trying to figure out electricity.
Well, we're literally seeing this 20 minutes after it got dropped, mate.
Exactly.
Too much. The people listening to this, so this will be up probably the day after we record this. So you people listening now will know a lot more than we do now in our present, but our future selves will know more than our present selves do now. So in retrospect, you still don't know more than us. So
exactly. So
cool. So
exactly. So there's one last mechanic, which is probably the most interesting. I mean, if you didn't think Mutate was the most interesting, I mean, it's probably the most convoluted in terms of mechanics. In terms of like, I don't know, in terms of just the game itself, we've got a new thing called Companion.
Yeah.
Now, apparently there are 10 companions in Ikoria. Each is a legendary creature, and they're going to have an ability that basically sets a deck restriction or a deck building rule. So for the one that we've seen at the moment, we've seen a couple, but the one that's listed on the mechanics page is Karuga, the Macro Sage.
Karuga.
And if Karuga wasn't a cool enough name, it's a dinosaur hippo.
All the names in this set are pretty cool.
Yeah, and they all sound like they need to be screamed from the rooftop, you know. Like, this is kaiju dot
Karuga.
Karuga.
Maybe without the approachive accent though.
Yeah. But it's a Godzilla-based set. What do you want from me? Anyway, if you didn't think a dinosaur hippo could look cool, go and look up Karuga, because it would like to know your location so it can lay down some whoop-ass, because it looks like thick with a capital damn. Like, it is.
Yeah, it's like a Stegosaurus hippo, and
it's so cool.
That hippo got booty.
My God, why didn't you give us these creatures? Like, this is how you make biology. Anyway, so the companion rule for this one is that your starting deck contains only cards with converted mana cost 3 or greater and lands.
So stupid. It's so good.
So basically the way this works is if you want it as your companion, it sits in your sideboard for constructed format. So in limited, it would sit in your sideboard with all the rest of your draft nonsense or sealed nonsense. In standard and other formats like modern and legacy or whatever, it would take a slot of your sideboard. The thing is, you can, in the same way you have your commander in your command zone, you can cast this from your sideboard once, and then once it's in play, it's in the game as if it normally would be in the game.
Yeah.
You could still play it within the deck if you don't want it, if you just want it for its other ability. Karuga's, for example, is that when it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other permanent you control with converted mana cost 3 or greater.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're playing Commander, you can have this as your companion. The thing is, obviously, it sets a deck building restriction for the rest of your deck, but it essentially acts as kind of like a partner win. The thing is, it wouldn't go back to a companion zone, as far as I can tell. I think it would just go to your graveyard as normal. But you would essentially start with your commander and then your little companion on the side. Now, for Karuga, that's not your deck containing only cards with converted mana cost 3 or greater. I've seen the meme decks, like, converted mana cost 6, converted mana cost decks and things like that. Where you get around it with cycling cards.
It kind of forces people to build theme decks in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's not negligible to have a deck building restriction of 3 or greater, because you get rid of like all your mana rocks, all your efficient removal spells, all that nonsense. So it would be a tough one, but it looks really cool. There is one that's been released. If we want to quickly talk about, have you got a favorite card that you've seen today?
Yes.
Cool. Right, go ahead.
Oh, right. Okay, my one. Okay, so this actually segues a little bit into the fact that we have also got the commander faces. The faces.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So we do have the 5 decks, and the sort of not conspiracy theories. The prediction was right that they are the Tarkir wedges.
Yeah.
So the one that I really, really like is Cathril Aspect Warper, which is a 2 generic and white, black, green. So this is the Abzan wedge. Legendary creature Nightmare Insect, which is a 3/3. It doesn't fly or anything, which is kind of interesting, but
but it's not an angel, is it? So
it's not an angel insect. It is a nightmare insect. So yeah, you are right. It's very close.
It was very
box is big. So when Cathril Aspect Warper enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on any creature you control if a creature in your graveyard has flying. Repeat this process for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. That's all the keywords. Then put a 1/1 counter on Cathril for each counter put on a creature this way.
God, I've just realised that last little clause, you can be putting a lot of things on.
Yeah, I've got to take this.
Just put the Talpa in your graveyard and suddenly you're adding 6 counters.
Anything, all of these things. There are lots of keyword matter creatures that don't really.
Yeah, Baneslayer Angel.
I was thinking things like what's the Griffin thing from Amonkhet? Is it
the one Myriad something. Myriad Phenomenon. Something like that.
Something like that. All these different things, which is really, really cool. Like anything which just dumps stuff into your graveyard, and you can have recursion, you can have a counters theme. This guy looks wicked. Everything about this card just screams flexibility to me. And also, it's not. Again, this is my sort of recent sort of flourishing in Commander, my blossoming of ideas, if you like, is that...
Oh, you're blossoming.
Blossoming. Okay. Yeah, I'm growing as a player. Is that your Commander doesn't necessarily need to be the build around. You can just do like an Abzan graveyard strategy with like a counters backup or like a keyword strategy backup. And then this guy drops on the battlefield and suddenly your deck just goes fucking nuts. Like all of these commanders, it seems, I'm not going to read them all out. But like, again, if you're listening to this, you probably have already seen them. It does seem to be kind of that they haven't made these guys busted in terms of like when this thing drops on the battlefield, you win the game. Like none of them are like Lane, for example.
No, that's a funny thing, isn't it? Yeah, then none of them are like that brawl level of they're not dripping with value. Exactly. It's not like you pick them up and you're greasy already,
Absolutely.
You've got to work a little bit.
You do have to work a little bit, and you have to build your deck to be sort of synergistic without that commander, because the commander just comes in and supercharges your deck. But I mean, the artwork by Matthias Korolos, oh man, I butchered that name. I'm sorry, Matthias. Is stupidly good. Like, it's just so good. I know I say that about all Magic artwork, because all Magic artwork is great, but this is like really, really top notch. So that's my favorite, Cathril Aspect Warper.
Okay, nice. And it's like almost like a Ray Army, but without being in colours that would tell you to do something more spell slingery. Like, it feels like more like an Abzan commander in my mind.
Sure, yeah, and it just seems really flexible.
Yeah, and as I said, like, the first thing I saw when I saw the artwork, I was already blown away straight away. So,
yeah, I think for definite, I'll be buying that commander deck for sure.
Yeah. I like all of them. And then you've also in that 5 got the cat dinosaur token maker. And Gavin Verhey, I am sorry if you are listening, you are a liar, sir. They are not cute. They are not cute at all. Those tokens, they can burn in a hellfire.
In his little video, he said that they were going to be cute. They're not.
They are not. They look like bloody change. They look like worse versions of the Lorwyn changelings. And the Lorwyn changes look like they touch people at night. They are not okay. and not okay. Anyway,
They do. They look like really creepy Teletubbies, don't they?
they're so strange.
Their little TV bellies.
Anyway, and also if you look between that and Atlee, like they really like their little like nest mothers at the moment, don't they? They're weird human.
Atla Polani looks like she would be best friends with Gavi for sure. Nest warden.
Yeah. Just sat there slowly stroking the eggs. We've been expecting anyway.
Have you seen my egg? I have a very nice egg. Oh, I like your egg. Have you seen my egg?
Oh God,
my one's got a cat dinosaur. Oh, my one's got a dinosaur. Yeah,
dinosaur. Okay, great. Yeah, to be fair though, like the difference between like, hey, look, our little cute cat is like, yeah, I've literally got Sakama. Like, what you got?
Yeah. Fuck off, Gavi, with your little cat dinosaurs. How many heads does that one have? Yeah, okay, cool.
Good.
What's your favorite card, Nathan?
My favorite card is one of the companions. It's literally the Spell Chaser. For one, is it hybrid? You get a legendary creature, Elemental Otter.
Otter.
It might be my new favorite card in Magic. It's a 3/2. It's got Companion. So if you want it as your companion, each non-land card in your starting deck has to have a different name. If only there was a format that I already play that already dictates that.
Highlander, Canadian Highlander.
Pauper. Yeah.
Brawl.
So it's got Flash. Yeah, right. Okay, the meme's there. So actually, to be fair, I mean, it still does work in Brawl as well. So yeah, I mean, that's not insignificant. So it's a 3/2 with Flash. When it enters the battlefield, you may, if you cast it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So basically, for 3 mana, it's just a free double whatever spell, the next spell you play from the beginning of the game. Just sits there as long as you've got some Izzet colors in your deck. Just sits on the side there, and then a free double with your spell. Now, if this card, I mean, I don't want to say that it's going to be really good because it means that people might buy it up. It's only a rare, so it's okay, and it's very specific.
That's right. It's only if the Command Zone do an episode on it, then it'll skyrocket in price.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Plus, it's got Flash like the Valkyrie. So no. So the big thing about this is obviously it works really, really well in both limited companions. In general, coming back to it quickly, works not only really well in constructed formats, it's also really good for limited because it can mean that you can, especially in draft, you can really, really push your draft experience. So what I like about this card is not only does it basically it's tailor-made for Commander, it also really works in limited, and I really like red blue spells. It reminds me a lot of Cracklebear. If anyone likes Cracklebear and there are any Cracklebear lovers out there, then respect to you. Go and have a look at this Otter. The artwork is insane. The quality of the picture is a bit bad, but I think it's like Lee Setterman. I can't tell. The picture's too small. But either way, whoever Lee, if that is Lee, your artwork, oh my God, you're amazing. I love you.
It is very cool. It's like an electric Otter, like with this kind of
really
red elemental.
Is it? Yeah, it's the most is it thing I've seen since. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, the card frame, the little banner at the top. If you look at the hybrid spells, I don't know why the hybrid has this and the other ones don't. But look at the little banner on the legend at the top for the hybrids compared to the gold cards, and you'll see this little flare just above the text box, and it looks so nice. I think it's a little bit like the miracle effect. I
think it's the 2 colors of mana crashing into each other, and that's the effect you get when 2 colors of mana directly hit each other. That's what I think.
Be really cool. That'd be really cool. Imagine if at the end of the set we get the red light and the green light, and they combine together to make like a gold light, and that's I don't know. That's my prediction for the set. They combine both colors of light together. That's my big.
And then we get the 5th color of magic, purple.
Yeah. Oh, why isn't it purple? Yeah, this is it. This is happening. It's happening because we had the fusion of the planes together back to make Alara whole again. These planes are already together. What happens when they confluence twice? No, I'm joking. It's fine.
One thing I will say that we got very wrong from our prediction episode, and we might still be proven right a little bit. I suppose we are with the mutate mechanic, but we were right on saying that we called Gavin Verhey and Mark Rosewater out, saying they were basically lying to us by doing these are the creature types you're going to be getting in this set. You're going to get this thing and a that thing. And we said, well, they can say whatever they want because they're going to do a bunch of like single creature type creatures, and then you can merge them together. Yeah, which Mutate seems to be still doing that. But so many of these creatures are exactly what they said they were on one card, which is not something they're going to do. So we have our Elemental Otter, we have our Demon Kraken, we have our Dinosaur Foes and Elemental Dinosaurs, Nightmare Insects. We've got them all. They're there, actually, as those creatures. And I cannot fucking tell you how much happier I am that that is the case. Because I love creatures.
Yeah, right. Because it
Whole
means that
episode on it.
they're going to make these things a thing.
Yeah, really cool. Like
Exactly. It's not they go, oh, you could make this insect into a nightmare. They go, nah, this is a nightmare insect. Let's make a nightmare insect.
Yeah.
So I think that's very cool. Yeah. Because
So
the mutate mechanic doesn't combine creature types. It just takes the ability text box and adds it to the creature that's on top.
Sure.
Just for clarification. So you can't make an elemental, otter, demon, kraken. In your mind you can do it in your mind. It just doesn't work in play.
One last thing I'll talk about Ikoria, because this is literally just the first hour and a half of spoilers. We've got 10 days worth of this, and we'll be doing a whole episode on this later. And one last thing I will say is incredible is the alternate artworks, the Godzilla series artworks.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a leak I think it was about 4 or 5 days ago at time of recording, where there was a leak online from, I think it was a Dutch website, leaked some cards that seemed to show Godzilla, King Ghidorah, and Mothra as artworks for this set. And people thought, well, they're either fake, or they could be box toppers, or they could be like a master set, or like they did the Hasbro series. Where they did exactly. The alternate artworks. I still don't quite know how you get them. I don't think anyone does. I don't think anyone will until they actually release the set.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think they're going to be released as part of the set. I think they're going to be a separate one.
But what they are,
we'll see,
is that they are alternate artworks for some of the legendary creatures in the set. So it's still the creatures' text box and power and toughness and typings and everything. But it's so Godzilla, King of the Monsters, for example, is a reskin, if you like, of Zilortha, Strength Incarnate. So it's still the Zilortha creature, but they've reskinned it to be Godzilla. So you can have your cake and eat it. It's still a magic card. They're not just throwing in, oh, this is Godzilla exists in the magic world. But you can have that skin if you like it. And I think it's a really slick way of bleeding two different IPs together. Because some people really
very much so
like the Transformer cards and really didn't like the Hasbro My Little Pony cards, because people hate fun, apparently. But like these Godzilla skins, these reskins is how I'm going to describe them. They look pretty fucking cool. Like, they're very good.
Yeah, some of them are really deep cuts as well. Like King Caesar's a really good one for those that actually paid attention to Godzilla. And the franchise itself, the way that I think the film that was going to be coming out, Godzilla vs. King Kong, and the way it was all going to be coming out at the same kind of time, which is why a lot of people initially were like, "This, I don't think this is a fake," because the leaks would have come out at the same kind of time that the set was supposed to be dropping anyway.
Sure.
And obviously, we're getting Godzilla vs. King Kong coming later in this year as well. And I think it's a really good. I just think it's a really cool way to give like modern day treatment to magic cards, and they don't feel weird. Like some of them just look so cool. Garuda the Doom of Depths alternate artwork is just so cool.
Yeah.
And I think obviously we had a conversation about whether they're going to do the cartoony anime style, and I think for some of them they are. There's the alternate artwork on Vivian looks a bit more anime style, but I think this will make more people happy doing the Godzilla thing, because not only is it a little bit of a nod to the people, to the older players, to younger players, no one's going to be really angry at seeing Godzilla on a magic card. And they seem to have done justice to a lot of the cards as well. Like, I think they might have had to stretch to put a moth in the set just to get Mothra, I think.
Sure, yeah, I guess.
Because I don't really feel why there would be a giant moth in the set anyway. So I feel like they went, well, if we're going to be doing Godzilla, we've got to get Mothra, so we better put a moth in the set.
But then, fuck it.
So I think this must have been done for a long time.
Yeah. Sure, I agree. So yes, that is Ikoria. That's our initial impressions as rambly and fuck. I was going to say the word as uncoherent, and I couldn't even get that out. So that's how
incoherent.
Incoherent. Whatever.
Good. Fantastic.
As rambly as they are, because we're just so excited. Once we kind of compose ourselves and get together our actual thoughts and feelings on the set, then we'll do a whole episode on it. Don't you worry. We'll probably have time for 2. But for now, let's move on. So the actual purpose of this episode, the reason that I think we're recording it now, is because, like we said in our last episode, the UK, like much of the world right now, is under some form of lockdown or advised sort of self-isolation because of the COVID-19 virus that's going throughout the world. I think a lot of people are trying to avoid talking about it on content because people want to like a little break from hearing about it constantly, but you can't escape it. This is like a big thing, and that's forcing people to spend a lot of time in their homes. And Magic: The Gathering is exactly that. It's Magic: The Gathering. I know it's a bit of like a tired cliche to like keep saying it, but there is no Magic without the Gathering. It seems to be the kind of battle cry for people, especially in a world where digital Magic is kind of being focused on more, or the idea is that it's being focused on more than paper magic. People want to say, no, we want to sit down across some people. We want to go to our LGS. We want to go to Friday Night Magic. We want to play Commander and have like a 4-person table. And that's really impossible at the moment. It's not just hard to do; it's impossible to do right now, and it's a fucking bummer.
Yeah,
man.
It's a really bad time to. Yeah, it's a really bad time to finally get over being an introvert.
Exactly, yeah, and it's one of those weird things because even if you have a home play group, you can't. The advice is for a lot of people, and again in the UK, it's even harsher. In places like Italy, and it's even harsher still. You can't just go across to your mate's house, or rather, you shouldn't be doing it. So the idea that well, if I can't go to my LGS because it's closed, I can still play with my mates down the road. That is impossible to do. I know you and your housemates. You live with 4 or 5 guys. No, that's wrong. You live with 3 dudes. That's right.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, and all of them play Magic to some degree. Not quite as invested as
exactly. Yeah, I've taught all of them over the years.
So you have your own sort of inbuilt play group, but even then, that's you'd have to be really invested to want to play Magic 24 hours a day every day. Like I kind of feel like we wouldn't have a problem doing that, but I don't know if they would necessarily do it.
No,
I live with my wife. She plays Magic, but there's only the 2 of us for a start, so we can't really play Commander. And if I'm honest, I think she just learnt Magic to kind of shut me up a little bit. To kind of be stop pestering me to learn your dumb game. All right, I'll learn the game. And she plays it, and she's actually annoyingly quite good. So when we do play, it's frustrating for me. So that's probably why we don't play.
That might not be a comment on her playability. You realise that, right? That might.
That might just because I'm really terrible at the game.
Oh, I'm glad that. I'm glad I fished a little bit, but you got there really, really quickly. So
yeah,
good job.
Thanks, mate. That's really cool. And so if you're not living with like people who play this game, and you can't go to a place where you can play the game with other people, you're kind of stuck. Like, all right, okay. There is Magic Arena. There is Magic Online. Do you have a Magic Online account?
Nope.
No, I don't have a Magic Online account either. I don't have a Magic Arena account either. I can't get Magic Arena on my janky-ass laptop. You have Magic Arena though, don't you?
Yeah, I have an Arena account.
Yeah. I mean, how are you finding
it? Magic Online is a bit too old for me. A little.
Sure.
A little. I've always been one to do it in person, and also I never had a computer that was good enough to run it. So yeah, it was never in my. I'd always rather play in person.
So there's a growing movement which actually I've just kind of got stuck in with because I now have a half decent webcam where people are playing paper Magic over things like Zoom or whereby.com or like these different kind of Skype style services, these kind of conference call services where you can use your webcam to point down at your board state and you can play paper Magic with other people. I've done it a couple of times now. It is very cool and it is definitely scratching the itch which you miss with paper Magic, but at the same time you can't be doing that all the time. And you are definitely doing that a lot less and for a lot less time than, say, if you went down to your LGS once or twice a week to sit down for upwards of like 5-6 hours playing Magic and drinking, like having a beer with your mates. You can't necessarily do that sat at your kitchen table. Like, it's just not as viable. So how do we engage with this game that is a game that you're meant to play with other people in front of you? How can we still engage with it? How can we still, actively be invested in our hobby? Especially if we're sat in our flat or house with a whole bunch of box of cards on the other side of the living room. And I kind of feel like this is a lot easier for us Vorthos than it is for people who aren't necessarily Vorthos, because I kind of think we think about the game on a slightly different level. Like it is also the books and it is also the stories and it is also, the artwork for us in a much bigger way than, say, someone who just tournament grinds. Like the amount of Magic Fests that have been cancelled this year because of everything that's going on, I would fucking hate to be a tournament grinder right now. Like it must be so tough to be a Spike and playing this game. Like I really feel for people whose enjoyment of this game comes from going to Magic Fests and going to GPs, because this is just the worst time imaginable, right?
Yeah, well, isolation gets to everyone in different ways, and it's especially when you're used to that ability to have the human contact. I mean, don't get me wrong; like you can take for granted the fact that we sit within an environment and a social group that are more akin to be able to sit at home by themselves, and I mean, if you've never sat down for like and lost a month to an RPG, then then I'll be surprised, because a lot of people that play Magic are probably the same kind of people that can just sit and just disappear into a game for a month. But realistically,
being able to go into a different world and live in a game for a while is definitely something which Magic players are very good at, for sure.
Yeah, but obviously, if you are used to that ability to, not only do some people have to get used to like the routine of being on the grind, and obviously they're going to lose a little bit of pace in terms of not only. I mean, a lot of these players will be grinding online as well, because sometimes it's just the only way to feasibly get enough play time in. But yeah, it's going to be really, really tough for people, and especially. The point is that if you have a choice of whether you can go outside or not, it's a bit different than being told you're not able to. And it's almost like that human defiance. So as soon as someone says you can't do something, it makes you want to do it more. So it's quite tough. But yeah, these setups that you can do, like these, obviously it does help that arenas become massively popular over the last year or so, because it allows people to still have a good Magic outlet, whereas MTGO, like Magic Online, had some heavy criticisms for performance and all that nonsense. So, and as you say, the way that you can set up home accounts, webcams, and you can even do like house party things. Like there's so many apps out there that allow you to stay in contact with other people. Hopefully, people are out there that everyone's gunning for wanting to do something. You've just got to contact people and make it happen.
Yeah,
it's not
sure.
as if we don't have the time to, you know.
One thing I will say is that Wizards has set up the Magic Fest online, which isn't on Magic Online, it's on Magic Arena, confusingly. And they have been having lots of streamers and content creators and pro players doing commentary for them. But what they do is they stream the commentary on their own channel. So, for example, I know that the guys from Loading Ready Run have been doing lots of streaming content, and they get partnered up. So one of the guys from LRR will get partnered up with another content creator or like professional Magic player, and they'll stream their channel whilst watching Magic Arena events being streamed on Twitch, and they're commenting on it as it's going on. So you can kind of have this kind of makeshift sort of Twitch channel, if you like, across lots of different Twitch channels that make up this online Magic Fest experience, which I think is really cool. But this all kind of boils down to the fact that I kind of feel that even though there are these different ways to engage, and WotC and the community have been so good at kind of pulling together, there's still kind of an absence. There's still kind of a hole of how to engage with this game without, being able to talk about it with other people. And it really struck me actually that there was about a week maybe where I was finding it really tough to not be engaged with the game. And I've read a bunch of different sort of story articles and all this kind of thing, but the feel of having like physical cards in my hand was getting me really down. So I did just pull out I've got two big white boxes which have all my cards in, and I did just pull them out, and I took all the draft chaff and all of the kind of dismantled commander decks that I'd had just kind of sitting in a box for a long time. And I did just start putting them out and having a look through them and sorting them these color piles to put away and all that kind of thing. And it was so cathartic to actually just have the cardboard in my hand, and a chore that usually we all have these boxes that just sit on our shelf and we go, that's from Friday Night Magic, or that's that commander deck that I never really put together. We'll sort that out later. I know there's some good stuff in it. But you never touch it because it's a chore, right? It's not an enjoyable thing to do for most people. But I just started doing it, and I've got to say, mate, it was so cool just to be looking through cards, and it gave me such a new appreciation for like card arts and flavor texts, and just having the cardboard in my hand. I don't know, man, it felt really good. I don't know if that's an experience that you've had recently.
I find that as you say, like, because we haven't had, there's no way to like go out and engage outside of the house. I've turned my attention back to my collection as well, and I'm doing the same thing of where I'm going through. I'm literally looking at them now. At the piles. I basically upended a box of about 40,000 cards, and I'm slowly putting into piles of colour, and eventually then I'll sort them by converting mana cost, and then I'll eventually sort them out by rarity, all that nonsense. And it does give you a greater appreciation for just how much effort gets put into the game when every single card has its individual artwork, has its own design, and you start. Not only is it great to go through everything, because you can find little lost treasures, like like that white main line you forgot you had, or the mana geyser that's still somewhere in my collection that I can't find when I was in there. I have an allure in there as well somewhere, which is like a £35 card. If I can't find it, I might cry. But yeah, it's very much it's even the little things when you're going through like basic lands and things like that. Like there's such an amount of effort that goes into artworks and into this game from start to finish. So I mean, yeah, I very much get that feeling, especially when you are, as you say, just sifting through and you think about what cards can I afford to get rid of, and you sometimes think, man, imagine being the guy who spent 3 months as an artist painting an artwork for a card that gets on a life game card that no one plays and doesn't even play in draft. You know, it's a shame, but these obviously the cards where they give you up this extra place to put, as you say, bits of story that you didn't realize. And like the thing that ticked me off about the civilizations and everything that are going on in Ikoria is that one of the artwork, the pangolin flavor text at the bottom of it, had the name of a kitist. Or sorry, not a kitist, a zoologist. So from that point, I was like, oh, okay, so there are actually like sentient races on here, and those little tidbits. Like you might not know there are any zoologists on Ikoria, but because of the flavor text, you do, and suddenly it creates a little bit more. Especially when we've had, you know, probably one of the most lackluster sets for story in a long time recently, and we even said from the card point of view, the set is really rich. It just didn't have anything to back it up. Sometimes that's enough. And I think it's going to be really interesting, especially in a set like this where it's really, really evocative. All the little tidbits of how every single creature is going to have its own little twist, its own little mutation. I think it's going to be quite interesting to look through. But yeah, like go through your collections, guys, because you'll find a new love. Like I found my Fists of the Anvil, my foil Fists of the Anvil. I think it was the first foil I ever had, and just gave me a little pang of like, oh, I remember that card. Like you might have played a specific like limited environment a lot. Like so, I played a lot of Rise of the Eldrazi, and every time I see Vent Sentinel, it gives me a little smile at the number of times that I drafted the defenders and cane people with Vent Sentinel before the Eldrazi's could attack me. So yeah, I think there's a lot of extra love to be squeezed out of your collections, 100%. And if not, it's a really good way to waste time and make more space in your cupboard. Because there's so much chaff, get rid of it, for God's sake.
So there's a couple of cards that I stumbled upon when I was looking through my draft chaff, and actually this is what inspired me to kind of like have this be the direction for this episode, because it did take my brain to somewhere which it wouldn't have done otherwise unless I'd actually sat down and just physically went through the cards of my own volition and kind of thought, you know, this kind of self-isolation away from everyone else doesn't need to be a point of me being sad about my game. It just means I need to engage with my game differently. And so there's a couple of cards that I'm going to talk about now. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about some of them as well. First one is Ogre Gatecrasher from Dissension, which is a 3 generic mana and a red for an Ogre Rogue, 3/3. And this is a reprint from the Mystery Booster. So this is my draft chaff from the Mystery Booster draft that I did a couple of weeks ago. It was one of the foils. So the flavor text is as follows. A popular game among ogres is to see how many revolutions a head can make before it pops off. And the card art by Darren Bader is an ogre holding what looks like an Azorius Law Mage. And you can't see the head because it's in one of his fists, but you do just see the kind of gloop of blood coming out from his knuckles. Yeah. I'm looking at that right now. There are a lot of horrific...
Yeah, the amount of times I've seen this artwork, a bit like, okay, a big dumb ogre. I've never read the art. That is gruesome.
That is brutal. There are a lot of really quite disturbing artworks in Magic the Gathering, but for some reason, this one made me go really, really cold. It's because it's meant to be quite funny. Like ogres
and pops off. It sound nice and light. It's like he's literally tearing his head off.
It's really quite gruesome. Like they try to use ogres and in the simulated goblins where they kind of make their violence and their sort of anarchicism sort of jovial, but this one's just really fucking brutal. I mean, it's a common 3/3 that's just not very good in any format.
Yeah. Do you reckon they did it on that card because they knew they could get away with it because people would just overlook it so much?
Maybe. I just think that when people...
Do you reckon they'd put Decapitation on their Premier Mythic cards? Imagine if they have like the next Planeswalker really, really good and it's just someone like, I don't know, like happy slapping someone.
I think what they do is they design their legendary creatures and their mythic creatures to look really gnarly, but actually they're just doing some sort of like pose or some kind of like victory stance. Whereas they have the really gruesome shit. They either put them in black cards or they put them in other cards which you just kind of have to look a little bit deeper in the background because it's I mean, if you haven't seen it, again, Ogre Gatecrasher from Dissension by Darren Bader is it's a pretty gruesome card. Again, I would not have found that if I just didn't take the time to get the cardboard in my hands.
Ogre Rogue?
It's an Ogre Rogue as well. Yeah.
Ogre. What are you? I'm an ogre. Oh, great. Sorry. That's it.
I mean, find enjoyment in any which way you can, dude. That's what I say.
Oh, no, ogre. It's just an Ooga Baruga, isn't it?
The next card...
Right, you've lost me. Carry on.
I came across. These actually weren't from the Mystery Booster draft. This was from just a pile of EDH staples that I was just kind of sifting through to sort back into my boxes. So we've got Dreamstone Hedron and Hedron Archive, which are the 6 mana and 4 mana rocks that tap for 3, or in the case of Hedron Archive, tap for 2. They're basically the same card, but just for higher mana cost and bigger effect. The card art on Dreamstone Hedron shows an Eldrazi unlocking a Hedron, which is the geometric shapes that you find on Zendikar. And then the artwork on Hedron Archive shows Jace doing pretty much the same thing with a Hedron. He's unlocking it and kind of making it activate. Now, the flavor text on Dreamstone Hedron reads, "Only the Eldrazi mind thinks in the warped paths required to open the Hedrons and tap the power within. Only Eldrazi minds can do this." And then the flavor text on Hedron Archive goes, "You've begun to understand the Hedron's true purpose," said Ugin. "The Eldrazi can be imprisoned." "And how did that work out last time?" asked Jace. So Jace can unlock the Hedrons.
I think,
but he's not an Eldrazi.
Well, I think the whole point is the Eldrazi know the ways. I think this is retconning, because I think the whole point was it was the other way around. Before we had some grand idea of Ugin locking them in, imprisoning, blah 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 blah. I think the idea was to make the Eldrazi seem more coherent and eldritch. But when we came back, the idea was that Ugin was the mastermind and the Eldrazi were a bit more drone-ish.
Sure.
So I think that's more. I think that's more where two different. Because the annoying thing is as well is that this is basically a Mind Stone cycle. Because Mind Stone's 2 mana for a tap for 1. Hedron Archive is 4 for 2. Dreamstone Hedron is 6 for 3. Blah blah blah. And they all scale up in cards as well. I think it's a shame that they don't have coherence between the two of them, but I think the idea is that I think they might have just come from different directions, and then when you look at them side by side, it doesn't quite match.
It seems like a plot hole, right?
Yeah, a little bit, because I think the idea is that they are essentially like I like to think of them as Rubik's cubes, but magical Rubik's cubes, of where you have to use a different magic to make it turn each time, and obviously Eldrazi. I mean, I guess Eldrazi, because they were trapped within them, might understand how to interact with them better. I don't know, because there's supposed to be a fusion of Ugin and Ugin's magic and Nahiri's lithomancy. So I think that might be, as you say, a little bit of a plot hole. And that also might show where story coherency has its differences between, like, going forward. So sometimes I have an idea of, like, Ugin first showed up in Future Sight, in Ghostflame. And I don't think at that point they knew that eventually he was going to be this, the creator of Tarkir. But his journey has gone from just a random card of flavor text all the way through, as you've seen this journey, and all the way to this. So I think you can almost see here, this is kind of where, in Rise of Eldrazi, they kind of knew where they wanted the feel of the Eldrazi to be in terms of eldritchness. And then obviously when we came back to Zendikar, the Hedron and everything was a little bit less to do with the Eldrazi and more to do with Ugin and his magic. But yeah, it's funny that you wouldn't have noticed this plot hole, as it were, without going through and looking through all the different planes.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I just thought, since I had the Zendikar expert on the line, I might as well bring it up and see what.
Well, yeah, exactly.
The artwork for
like my jam.
The artwork for Dreamstone Hedron by Eric Deschamps is pretty underrated as well. Like, again, it's hard to describe it on an audio podcast, but check out Dreamstone Hedron and really look at the artwork. Eric Deschamps is also a very nice chap. I met him at Magic Fest London. Pretty cool dude.
Yeah, this is one of the first sets that really blew me away art style wise, because we hadn't seen anything like the Eldrazi before. I didn't play when the original Phyrexians were around, so like the most evil thing that I came across really were like I mean, Nicol Bolas, I guess, was bad.
Yeah,
but,
sure. I mean, yeah, he's all right, isn't he? He's just.
And then the Eldrazi came along. You're like, oh, buddy, we're in the big leagues now. When they first spoiled Emrakul, I think I shat my pants. So yeah.
But yeah,
I think it's quite interesting to see, like, as you say, like perspective on planes as well. And it's also, I like it's just as good as but even better than finding things that don't add up are the times when you find things that do. When you see a flavor text that's basically exact mimicry. Do you know what I've only realized just the other day? Rampant Growth is a stylization of the Japanese wave. It's a Japanese artwork that's blue and white of a wave.
Oh,
it's the exact same composition as Rampant Growth.
Is it the Great Wave of Osaka?
Yeah, exactly. And that's Rampant Growth.
Yes.
I 2 days ago I found that.
Yes.
So yeah,
I can't pretend I didn't know that, but yeah, it's very cool.
2 days ago I learned. Yeah, but it's things like that of where there's like there is so much depth to Magic, and this is probably the best time you're gonna have a chance to sit down and not instead of sitting around trying to waste time, spend the time that you would be wasting doing something that might feel a little bit more productive, and also maybe just give you a little bit more scope on the sets that you weren't able to explore so much.
Yeah, 100%.
I got a fat pack of Eldritch Moon as a prize and I'll get the local game shop's prize wheel. And I hadn't really opened up any of the set. I obviously bought some cards over the years or whatever. But then going through all the different cards and you get that, you kind of immerse yourself back in the story a little bit. Even if you do a drive-by like I do, I read all the stories and I look through all the. And I tend to have a good grasp of what's going on narratively. But in terms of world building, sometimes the only place you can find it is in flavor text and in artworks. So. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. So yeah, guys, the wrap up from that basically is if you are looking to do a bit of self-care and if you are looking to engage with the game, but you can't necessarily play the game, my advice is just sit down with your collection and just get the cardboard in your hand and just filter through, because honestly, it'll do you the world of good, and you'll discover things about the game that you might not necessarily have discovered before, or rediscover artworks that you really like, or an artist that you thought, I've filtered through 100 cards today, and every time I look at artwork I like, it turns out to be the same artist. Well, maybe that's your new favorite artist. That's something happened to me several times. But yeah.
Okay, Andy.
Yeah.
I'm about to get really, really sad and really, really angry.
Go on then.
They've already banned the Elemental Otter from EDH.
Is this literally live on air? You're now revealing this?
Literally, 13 minutes ago, Sheldon Mannery has said it's completely banned. There won't be such a thing as banned as companion. Either a card is banned from the format, or it's not, and they've banned it.
Oh my god!
I can't have one game. I got months. Do you have any idea how many months of Paradox fucking engine I got? For one game, Andy. I wanted one game.
Nathan, I will let you play one game with
Sheldon.
me.
Sheldon, I've stuck by you through many opinions. This one I cannot abide by. It's just banned. It's not. You can't even play it in the 99.
Well,
why? Oh man, this is.
I'm very sorry for you. Anyway, I'm very sorry for you.
Before I start, I'm gonna.
Guys listening at home, if you are listening at home, guys, can I just say a massive thank you to sticking with us through this tough time. Content and podcasts in all different mediums are experiencing a bit of a drop right now because people's schedules when they listen or consume content are completely fucked up. So if you are listening now, guys, we really appreciate it. And we also are really happy that we can create stuff that you enjoy listening to and that is keeping you going through this tough time. If you want to support our podcast, you can hit us up on Twitter at mtflavouring. We will be doing our flavour picks of the day every day that there are spoilers for Ikoria. So if you want to see what our flavour picks are and why, please head on over and hit that follow button. Emails go to mtflavouring@gmail.com. My personal Twitter, if you want to hit me up on Twitter, is at AndyManface. Nathan's is...
At Give Me My Elemental Otter Back. No, it's at Fox in the Moon.
At the Fox in the Moon. And other than that, guys, thank you very much for listening. We have been Magic the Flavouring.
Take care. We'll see you soon.